House for tonight's meeting of the Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee at Newcastle Borough Council. This would be the first committee meeting back after the change in the law relating to virtual meetings. We are still broadcasting live over YouTube, or at least we should be, for the benefit of the watching public, but all the voting members of the committee are now required to be in the room together, which we're doing, of course, under COVID secure conditions. Please remember to sanitize your desks at the end of the meeting. If you do need to get up for any reason, when you're walking about the room, please wear a face mask and please observe social distancing and all of the signs that are displayed in the room. Please follow those as well. Other than that, it's delightful to be together in a room again. It's an unlooked for joy, but it does demonstrate that we're moving towards normality again. In addition to members of the committee present in the room, we are joined by Councillor Stephen Sweeney, who is the portfolio holder responding on behalf of Cabinet tonight. And we have got officers in the room, in addition to two officers who are present virtually, who can see and hear what's going on, and we can see and hear them, I think. Yes, they're all behind me, so I can't, but members of the committee can. In addition to that, we're joined by a public speaker this evening, Alexandra Klaus, and she will be addressing the committee on, or before rather, item 5, in addition to asking the public questions that are on tonight's agenda. Now, because the public questions directly relate to items earlier on the agenda, it makes sense for us to reverse the order. So I will be taking item number 7 after item number 4. I think that's the only change to the order of the agenda, but that's the order we'll be taking it in. So item number 1 is apologies for absence. Have we received any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've had an apology from Councillor Pickup, an apology from Councillor Proctor, and substitute is the Mayor, Councillor Owen, and an apology from one of the portfolio holders, Councillor Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies? No apologies. I can see Councillor Owen, who is in his place substituting for Councillor Proctor. Also with us observing tonight is Councillor Fox-Hewitt. Other than that, the committee is all present. Our second item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest that they would like to make? I can see no, and I don't have to turn to the screen because nobody on the screens is a voting member of the committee. Item number 3 then is minutes of the previous meeting. They appear at pages 3 to 8 of your agenda pack. Are there any comments on the minutes, or can we agree those? I have a proposer, do I, in Councillor Hutton? Yes. Seconder for the minutes, Councillor Grocott. And if we're happy with those, excellent. Those are agreed. Item number 4 then is the update from Cabinet. I will ask Councillor Sweeney if he has anything he would like to share with us or update us on. But also I would say there has been one urgent decision that would have been scrutinised under this committee's remit that's been made since our last meeting. As the chair of the committee, in addition to the previous mayor, I was asked under the urgency rules that the council has to approve that. It is still something that we can scrutinise in the future if we choose, but because that decision was an urgent decision and we agreed it was an urgent decision, it has now been taken, I believe. And I don't know whether Councillor Sweeney has any information on that he'd like to share with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'll let Mrs. Wilkes answer that when it comes to that part. There were three questions asked of Cabinet at the last meeting. One, I think, was from Councillor Stubbs, is about the telephone waiting times on calls. Unfortunately, if this meeting had happened in June when it was scheduled to happen, we would have had the Q4 reports through. But we haven't got the Q4 reports yet because it's a bit early. So I can't give you any more information on the telephones, but it will be on the next set of reports. The next one, I think Councillor Waring asked us about the toilets, because I think he wanted to spend a penny, didn't he, if I remember rightly. One in Kidsgrove, one off Merrill Street, and one on Pepper Street. Although they were put down on the reports as things that could be disposed of, I don't believe any work has been done to dispose of them, and I don't believe there's a value being attached to them yet. in answer to that. So I can't give any more information, I'm afraid. It's a bit of a boring report, this. The third thing was the COVID, again, by Councillor Stubbs, I think, the inquiry, if you like, into the council's response on COVID. This is obviously something the Cabinet are very interested in themselves, and the Cabinet are going to do it anyway. When it's done, and it hasn't been started yet because COVID is not finished yet, but when it's done, it will then come to a scrutiny committee to be scrutinised, and I would envisage it'll probably be this scrutiny committee, although there's a question about, I know audit wants to look at it, haven't they, Paul? But as the same people on both committees, really, it doesn't seem hugely problematical. And I think it'll probably come to this committee. But at the moment, it's something the Cabinet are well aware of, and the Cabinet are going to organise and get done, and then it'll come here to be scrutinised by the members. Okay? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Sweeney. Does our officer wish to add anything in relation to the urgent item that was promulgated?
No, thank you.
Okay, well, that's then for the committee to note. Are there any responses to that, Councillor Stubbs?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I in no way question your integrity, Chair. I really don't. But at the moment, we're talking about an urgent decision that we don't know what it was, we don't know how much it cost, and nobody's willing to say exactly what it was, even if it's just a one-liner to say what the decision was. You know, we talk about open and transparency.
Yeah, Councillor Stubbs, we are an open and transparent council. It's not the slightest bit secret. It's some money paying for the swimming pool in Kidsgrove. They needed an advance of money, and it was agreeing that. And it was an emergency job. I had to go through quick. There's no things to say on that. There's nothing secret on it at all. No problem at all.
If I can just give some clarification of what it was actually about. The contractors are on site. Wilmot Dixon have got a purchase order for a certain amount of work for a certain amount of money for a certain scope. The ongoing discussions with the group over the lease and the contractor about the price, etc., along with the consultation that we needed to undertake with Sport England over the 3G pitch next door, all this jigsaw puzzle that is Kidsgrove Sports Centre refurbishment meant that the purchase order with Wilmot's ran out, and we ran the risk of losing the site team and the supply chains and the prices that we'd secured through those negotiations previously. So we issued a subsequent purchase order to keep the supply chain engaged, to keep the prices that we've got, and to do some additional advanced work so that the contractors stayed on site and we didn't lose the team that have dismantled the building to put it back together again.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Chair. I think Kidsgrove Sports Centre is one of the few things that the whole of the council agrees on. So, you know, I'd go as far as to say that we might have been of extra help if we'd have known something about what was going on. You know, there's at least 3 members in this room that serve on the cabinet panel. Is it a cabinet panel or the sports centre panel that, you know, would have been very interested in helping with this. So I think that's just an offer more than anything else, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. I completely recognise that. I think the reason I mentioned it was purely because I've been asked to sign off on it as an urgent decision. It's something that came and went very rapidly in the way that urgent decisions do, but you have a right to know about it and you have a right to scrutinise it if you want to, albeit retrospectively. So please do seek out, other members of the committee as well, please seek out that decision and the details of it. And should you wish to apply more scrutiny to it, it's something we should absolutely do. And of course, in general, it's within our remit to be scrutinising the whole process whereby we engage in the reprovision of sports to Kidsgrove. Okay, that concludes then, if nobody has further comments to raise, item number 4 on the agenda. Public question time then, I'm bringing forward because our public questioner is here with us, and also the answers to the questions will inform the debate that we have at item number 5. Now, I wonder if it's possible for our officer to share with us on our screens, but also for the benefit of the recording and for those officers who are not in the room, the 3 questions that we had received, because the text of those was submitted in advance, and I know some in our committee may not have seen them yet, although they were circulated, I believe. So if it's possible for that, that's she's tapping away in the background now. If it's possible, she'll put the questions up on the screen, and I'll read them out in turn, and we'll get answers to those. Normally I would put our public speaker, who is also the questioner, through the rigmarole of having to read them out, but she will be addressing us afterwards, so it'll save her the bother. And I believe we have officers having had advance notice of the questions, already prepared answers, and I'll invite our portfolio holder and the officers to answer them. If it's not possible for it to appear on our screen, I can read them out from another source. I just need to locate them. While we're waiting for them to pop up on the screen, what I will do is read them off the sheet so that we keep the meeting going. But if anyone wants the questions repeated before they appear behind me, I'll be happy to do that. First question that we've received tonight is, what evidence does the council have to prove that the car park needs to be expanded at Bradwell Crematorium? And what evidence is there for a need to expand for burial plots? Bradwell Crematorium underwent major renovation in 2003. How can the council guarantee this expansion is sustainable? So to answer that first question, I will call on Councillor Sweeney.
Thank you, Chairman. The council has invested regularly over the last 20 years in providing cremated remains burial plots, which are very popular with bereaved families and sell out very quickly. The most recent phase was completed in 2020 and is already being booked up. There is very limited capacity for further expansion within the current site, and it is estimated that this will be exhausted within the next 3 to 5 years maximum. It is therefore necessary to seek to expand the grounds to accommodate further burial plots. The proposed extension would provide an estimated 30 additional capacity, which is considered to represent a sustainable solution when compared to the alternative of having to seek an unconnected site elsewhere. The extension will be mainly green and open in nature and provide a model grounds with associated footpath access and parking to accommodate greater visitor numbers in the future, both for those attending funeral services and those visiting graves or memorials within the grounds. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. I will ask our officers if they want to add anything at this stage. Remember, we are going to have a debate on the Bradwell crematorium consultation later on, but if you have anything to add that is directly relevant to the answer to that question, if our officers would indicate.
No thanks, Chair. I think Councillor Sweeney's captured it all succinctly there.
Excellent. In that case, I will move on to the second question that's been asked tonight. The second question is as follows. Nationally, councils are committing to protecting green spaces, such as Liverpool. In Newcastle under Lyme Borough Council's 2021 budget, after public consultation, residents felt that one of the top 5 priorities in Newcastle was parks, playgrounds, and open spaces. But this council seems set to sell multiple sites off for monetary gain. Why go against national strategy and what's important to local people?
Yeah, once again, thank you, Chairman. The council has an open space strategy which has developed local standards for open space based on community need. It is considered good practice to develop local standards rather than adopt national standards, albeit the national standards are a basis upon which to compare. Newcastle Borough is well provided for in terms of the quantity of open space which is available for the community across a range of typologies. The situation at Chatterley Close was identified as being suitable for master planning as it was considered of sufficient size to accommodate other uses, as well as retaining a significant proportion as open space, including crematorium grounds. Now, if people want to look at the Cabinet report on the 10th of June 2015, you will see that the council, the previous administration, took this land out of the playing pitch strategy. And also, you will see, if I turn to the right page, that the council's open space strategy adopted in March 2017, again by the previous administration, identifies this site as suitable for master planning to facilitate alternative uses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. As before, do our officers have anything to add to the portfolio holder's response?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, just a quick analysis of other open and green spaces in the vicinity show that there are actually 7 other open spaces within a 5 or 10 minute walk of the site at Chatterley Close. One of those includes the Creme grounds, which are of course open to the public for recreational use. There is also the land immediately to the north of Chatterley Close, directly adjacent to the Chatterley Close site. Bradwell Woods, land at Clayhanger Close, the playing field at the community centre, the open space at Hanbridge Avenue, and Bradwell Dingle. So, you know, within 5 to 10 minutes walk away, there is other green and open space available for community use. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that response. The third question that's been asked tonight is as follows. If the sale of land is and more houses are built, then this is unsustainable development. Population growth has not sustained local services in the Bradwell and Port Hill area. In fact, those public services cannot cope with the current population. How does this council plan to expand public services and facilities in line with a further increase in population?
Yeah, thank you again, Chairman. The provision of infrastructure to support new residential development is an important consideration to the local authority. Through the new borough local plan, which is currently being prepared, the council will seek to ensure new housing is located in sustainable locations to support our local centres. The plan will also look to set measures for large-scale developments to ensure new community facilities, such as educational facilities and open space, are secured alongside new housing developments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for a third time, do our officers have anything to add to the answer that's been provided by the portfolio holder? No? Excellent. In that case, that concludes item number 7, because it's for the public to ask questions and to receive answers. But we may reflect on what was said, and if anyone wants to refer back to that in the debate that we have on item 5, please do. We will turn then to item 5 on the agenda. Consultation results, proposed extension to Newcastle crematorium grounds and development of adjacent land off Chatterley Close. There is a report and a supplementary report that's been circulated. In addition to the report on this item, we are also considering a matter that's been passed to us under the council's petitions protocol. There is a petition of 1,700 names, I believe, that is the text of which I hope our officer will be able to put on the screen for us, but which has been circulated by email to members. She's also the public speaker who's with us tonight, was the person who asked, I think, the questions, or one of the group. No, a different questioner then. But she will have heard what's been said so far. And as we move towards the debate on the big item on tonight's agenda, I'm going to invite her to speak to us for 5 minutes. That's in accordance with the time limits that are provided under the petitions procedure. And then after that, I'll open it up to councillors who will debate and scrutinise the report tonight. But there's no limitation on what you can say, but if you push the button on your microphone and it lights up, that means you'll be live and you'll have 5 minutes to say your piece. I'll give you a warning when you've got 1 minute left. Okay.
Okay, so thank you for this opportunity for me to come and speak to everybody. So I am a resident of Bradwell. I live at the bottom of the road at the Crem, going down towards the crematorium. So this will significantly affect where I live, the traffic, and it will affect my children's lives. So from my perspective, my children have grown up on the Crem. They have used it to play football, and I will, correct the officer what was pointed out in question 2 about there being 7 open spaces. Them spaces are not fit for children to play football on. They are boggy, wooded areas. My son couldn't have run round in that area and played football. So where will them boys go? Because there is a significant amount of boys that play football on that field. Where will they go? So they'll be on the street. Will they be causing trouble? We're supposed to be in a society where we look at preventing things, preventing ill-being, you know, keeping people well. If we haven't got that in Cranfield, where will these people walk their dogs? Where will they meet? Because there is a huge society and community on that field. As a mother of 2 children, like I say, who have grown up on that field, I'm also a dog walker. I've got 2 dogs. I use the field most days. There's always virtually somebody on there. So where will this community go? So there's a group of older people that walk on that field. Where will they go now? Will they walk on the pavement? Will they not see each other? There won't be that community place to meet anymore, and that field will be a huge loss to the local area. And like I say, you know, the officer did say there are 7 areas, which there is nice to walk around. But like I say, children can't play golf, they can't play cricket, they can't play football in them areas. And that is what happens now. In the report, obviously, it is questioned about the play areas. And in that master document, there is plans for a soft play area. That's not what there's now. There is an area where there was obviously used to be ramps, but there's an area where the boys play football when the grass is wet. They play basketball. It's used regularly. There's children on that play area virtually all the time, weather permitting. It's frequently used. So a soft area or a woodland play area is not going to be the same as the play area that they've got now. And obviously, as pointed out in the questions, we should be investing in our green spaces. They're really important for our mental health. And I think COVID has really proven that our local resources are actually crucial to us, and many more people now access them areas and make, you know, significant use of them. The car park. So we've got no evidence as a community to say that car park gets busy. Yes, there is occasional funerals that have a lot of visitors. Obviously, that hasn't been happening. But when it does happen, it's not a problem for the local community. We really don't mind a busy car park or a few extra cars on the road when these things happen, because, you know, we know under circumstances it's not like that all the time. So we don't understand why the car park needs extending, because I do walk around there. It's never really busy. So why have we got to have that done? If we, you know, if there's anything else, why can't we consider that? Does it need to be there? And like I say, my children have grown up there. I'm a mum. I walk the dogs on there. You know, it's frequently used, and people do really use it and value it as a community. And the traffic, how are we going to cope with the traffic? Arnold Grove, Hillport Avenue, Bursley Way, the Card Way, Chatterley, the busy roads already. So yes, we can say in the comments to the feedback that's going to be considered, but we can consider all we want. But if we're going to put houses on there and make the Crem bigger, more cars will come. They're still going to come whether we consider it or not. So aren't we better not having them cars? And as for the crematorium plots, okay, thank you. You know, yes, I do access that area, like the gentleman said, to walk around. It is open to the public. Children don't want to walk around there, and some people couldn't face walking around a crematorium to get fresh air. That could be the worst place for them to go to help their mental health. You know, and if these burial plots are popular, why take somewhere that's really valued by its community and put burial plots on it? Why can't we find somewhere else within the vicinity that isn't maybe valued as much or used as much? And if the field was not used, I would totally be in support of it. But the field is used, it is valued, and it's wanted in our community. So why take it away from us when there is other areas in Newcastle that could be utilised for these plots that are allegedly very popular with people? Obviously, we didn't always used to offer these plots, so we don't know what people did do before, but I can understand it might help some people, and that's fine. But, you know, why has it got to be on an area that is really used by people and very popular? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, and run perfectly to time. So thank you very much for addressing the committee. You're very welcome to stay and to observe the debate that's going to follow. In addition to the contribution from our public speaker, our officer has displayed the text of the petition behind me. And in addition to that, published with the agenda pack, so it should be on ModGov if you're looking at it digitally, are the 153 responses that were received to the consultation itself with personal details removed, and also on your printed agenda is a copy of the report itself. So with that, I shall open it up to members of the committee, because it's been a long time and you've not had the opportunity to speak yet. So I will go to Councillor Graham Hutton first of all.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of matters I'd like to raise. There's a bit of feedback there. There are indeed, as Mrs. Clues said, a number of traffic issues, partly caused by lack of doctor surgeries, pharmacies in the area. People have to go to Chesterton or Stanton. So that increases traffic flow. There are 2 popular schools in the area which increase traffic flow because people feel that they have to drive their children to school. But the worst matter, as I've observed over the last 2 months, is because of the humps on Bradwell Lane, traffic turns off up Bursley Way, down Arnold Grove, down Hillport and First Avenue. And it's quite a stream of traffic. And it's clearly through traffic, because I've followed some of it in my car to see if they were delivering locally or not. And it's through traffic caused by the humps on Bradwell Lane. So I will be asking the highways to get traffic monitors in that area so we can actually count the traffic and come up with a better plan to manage the traffic than is there at the moment, because it's diabolical. And when I get that report, I will feed that back into the planning committee when they consider this matter in due course, because I think it's very important we have such a detailed traffic study. Secondly, I am aware of the objections of local people, and I would urge the council, because we are a listening council, to listen to any duly authorised and representative groups to see if there might be compromises on the number of houses leading to more open space, such as delaying any development and say parcel 1 and 3 of the master plan put before us. I also think that discussions on the play areas with such a body would also be of enormous use, and I would urge the council to do that as well. So, but thank you, Chair. That's my 2 points, but traffic and consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Councillor Hutton is, of course, a freshly minted county councillor, and some of what he mentions is appropriate for the county council, and I think he's shared with us a little bit of what he might intend to do. I'll remind everyone that the recommendation in front of us is that we review the report and make any observations that we wish to make. So that observation, or at least the latter part of Councillor Hutton's contribution, will, I'm sure, be fed back to Cabinet by Councillor Sweeney and our officers. I haven't seen any other committee members indicate, but I did see Councillor Fox-Hewitt indicate. Now, Councillor Fox-Hewitt is not a member of the committee, but he's observing tonight, and at Chair's discretion, I'd like to invite him to speak if he'd like to contribute, so that other members can reflect on that. But of course, he's not able to vote on tonight's agenda, and he's not able to move things either. So with that in mind, Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you for that, Chair. I remain indebted for that discretionary power. In terms of the consultation process, I have concerns over the decisions to conduct that consultation process during a period of lockdown initiated by, of course, central government, whereby community groups and residents associations and such like could not meet to discuss the proposals, nor conduct any paper-based petitions, or to have that debate about what impact that's going to have on their community. I also note that the council declined to agree to a number of requests to extend the consultation process by a number of residents to account for those very restrictions that were in place. I also note that the consultation was not listed on the council website for large periods of time of the period in which it was running. With regards to the green spaces that the committee's heard as tonight has been available, I say this with the greatest respect. I think that comment about the 7 other sites is a little disingenuous, because a number of those sites have been or are looking to be identified parcels of land for sale. So they too would dramatically reduce the green spaces across the ward. I agree with Councillor Hutton, the points that he's made. I absolutely agree, and I've also requested a traffic survey from Staffordshire County Council, and that is a huge issue in the ward. In terms of the debate, I would add that there's precious green space available for residents across the ward of Bradwell. As has been captured in my own objections as ward councillor, there has been a large and diverse opposition to the proposals, a petition which I think is now in excess of 2,000 signatures on the platform change.org. I think residents recognise and give qualified support to a small, reasonable and appropriate expansion of the crematorium. But what appears to be the opposition is around the scale of the housing development that is proposed. I would ask you to consider that urban green spaces reduce the UHI or urban heat island effect. It cools air through evaporation, it reduces CO2. These are things that we should be considering when we're trying to run a clean air strategy as a council. The space is very well used, as has been eloquently said by our speaker. It's used by young people, sports teams, dog walkers, and it really does provide social, economic and environmental benefits. The mental and physical health is a fundamental objective consideration when we are looking at selling spaces for redevelopment. And again, I can't stress enough the critical lack of infrastructure, local health services, education, road networks. These are already known major issues in the ward, and these plans will only exacerbate them. In summary, I would close by saying I implore the committee to listen, and we've just heard how important that is, to listen to what residents are saying and act in accordance with those views. The faithful people of this borough will be expecting this council to act in their interests. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. I can see a couple of other members indicating that they'd like to speak. So I'll take Councillor Stubbs first and then Councillor Kieran, and then it's important that we get a response from our portfolio holder who will be listing all of these questions that are being asked and comments that are being raised. So Councillor Stubbs first.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll take it back to the consultation. It's very rare that a council runs a consultation and it unites not only local residents but also councillors on both sides of the aisle. I think it's very clear the amount of feeling against the proposal as is. It's really refreshing that a community group will be so progressive that they will offer suggestions on mitigating circumstances that they would agree on, whether it's the size of the development, whether it's the provision of open spaces, whether it's the a sports field or indeed the playground itself. But it feels and seems, and I may well be wrong, but I've got no way of seeing that nobody is listening. No, why haven't people? The amount of people against this is very clear. The feeling against this in its current form is very clear. Regarding, some people are saying 1,700, some people are saying 2,000. Let's meet in the middle. 18,500 people are against this project as is, and somebody needs to listen. We have to work in unison with our residents, and so far this has not been that. It pains me to say it. I've worked with officers on this council, but it feels like a land grab. It feels like a cash cow. And this wouldn't be allowed in other areas within the borough. It shouldn't be allowed in places like Bradwell. The one thing I would pick up on one of the answers to the questions earlier on was that we were looking to this local plan. Why are we referring to a local plan that's not going to be in place for at least 2 years? We have to operate under the planning rules and regulations that we have now. We can't refer to things that are not in place. that's disingenuous at best. So we have to look at what our standards are, look at what our requirements are as a body, and this doesn't meet them. You only have to look at other areas. I'll give you a really good example. We're investing money in a place like Kisgrove and Newchapel Rec and putting in a pump track, one of the best in the country, it's claimed by this authority, and I have little reason to doubt it. I've had children knocking on my door absolutely over the moon today about it, although I've had to tell them that they're trespassing and they can't use it yet. But why are we taking away in one area of the borough and giving in the other? It doesn't feel right. There needs to be a meeting of minds on this project, as I'm sure there is. There's a place where this can be both good for the council, but also the local residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. I'll call Councillor Kieran, and then we'll receive some response from the portfolio holder, and then I can see Councillor Fears indicated and Councillor Rout, so other members will come in. But first, Councillor Kieran.
Thanks, Chair. I've got a three-part question, actually. First of all, thank you to the speaker, and but also thank you to the portfolio for the answers to the questions asked by the public. In one of those responses, I kind of got the feeling that the suggestion was that the administration is essentially constrained by decisions made by a previous administration. Now, I'm slightly puzzled by that, because one of the things this administration has demonstrated very ably is its willingness to overturn decisions made by previous administrations. And a number of those decisions referred to were actually made in the context of the joint local plan, which this administration has decided not to pursue. So, I would welcome a clear sign from this administration that this is another area where they're willing to overturn previous decisions rather than apparently being bound by them. I'm also very mindful of the comment about the lack of places. Not all green spaces are kind of multi-use. There has to be a replacement for the area for young children to play football and other ball games, and I am also mindful of the issue of what happens if kids can't have a kickabout in that area. So one of the things I would like is some clarification. There are references to the upgrade to the mugger, so it'd be useful if we could have some clarification, maybe from one of the officers, about whether or not the upgraded mugger is intended to include an area for football, rugby, ball games, etc. The final part of my three-part question, I noticed from section 8 of the report, particularly 8.5, it's estimated that once the income generated from the sale of land for housing, once that's gone through and once the income that generates is used to fund the proposed improvements and extensions to the crematorium, the council will be left with a residual capital receipt of approximately 1.2 million. Now, the way I read that, particularly thinking about Councillor Fox-Hewitt's comments, is that this proposed development is bigger in terms of the income it's going to generate than is strictly necessary in order to fund the changes, revisions and upgrades to the crematorium. So if we are having a conversation about compromise, it seems to me one of the areas where there is some scope for compromise is that the development could be smaller than is intended, and it would leave a larger area of green space for residents to use if the council is willing to surrender that residual capital receipt and simply generate sufficient income to fund the improvements to the crematorium. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kieran, and thanks to others for their contributions. There is some direct challenge to the administration there, and there are some very specific questions. So I'll ask Councillor Sweeney to respond on behalf of Cabinet first of all, and then I'll ask our officers if they have anything to add.
Yeah, a few points really. consultation, when do we start? If we don't start as we did, I know the officers around putting leaflets through doors probably a year ago now, but we were constrained by COVID. Rather we put it off or we do it now. I think Councillor Kieran said we were somewhat constrained by the previous administration's policies. Well, I'm just trying to illustrate the fact that the previous administration got this land in the sites, hence coming out of the playing field strategy. And we just haven't carried on. I think a lot of these questions will be answered in the planning process. I think somebody mentioned other sites in Bradwell that we're looking to sell. Well, apart from the Nightway site, I'm not aware of any other sites in Bradwell at all. Really, the sites that Mr. Tate talked about, as far as I'm aware, are staying as they are. I'm certainly not aware of any other plans. You? No. That's the general sort of answer. But I think perhaps if we pass over to the officers for more detailed descriptions, perhaps Roger Tate wants to come in first, I think.
An excellent suggestion. Mr. Tate, would you like to contribute? Do you have anything to say at this point?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Sweeney for just clarifying the open spaces that I talked about earlier, the 7 other open spaces. As Councillor Sweeney's just said, there are no plans at present to do anything other with those spaces than carry on making them available for community use for open space and recreational purposes. So, there are, as I said earlier, there are 7 within a 5 to 10 minute walk of the Chartley Close site, and a further 2 at Bradwell Lodge and Port Hill Dingle, which are probably another couple of minutes further away. So, I take on board, what the speaker said earlier. I've no doubt that this site is used by the local community for open space purposes, but there are other sites available for the same purposes in the vicinity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Roger. Are there any other officers who would like to contribute at this time? Simon, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I'll bring my colleague Louise Beebe in, who actually ran the consultation. But this, I'd just like to remind that this is a part of the consultation. This is not a done deal at the moment. This is a master plan that is being consulted on, and the feedback will then shape that development going forward. So the feedback that we've had from members of the public and from members will help shape that. There was a couple of specific questions about the Mugger, if it will provide football facilities. Absolutely, a Mugger is built to that specification, so it will provide footballing facilities, etc. In terms of the way the consultation was undertaken, Louise and I have already been in contact with Councillor Fox-Hewitt around why we did it in COVID, etc. We are consulting as part of our undertaking through an asset management strategy that if we are to dispose of any sites, we go through a consultation period, get some feedback, and then that helps shape the development on or afterwards. And after Louise has had a few words, Sarah Wilkes, our Section 151 Officer and Director of Finance, will be able to give you some more clarity on where the surplus money will go in, because it's not just ring fence. It's not this 1.2 isn't just going to be the council putting it in the bank. It's got some real needs that are sat behind it. So, Louise, if you could come in and just talk us through the consultation period, is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, the consultations process was carried out in accordance with the asset management strategy, and we did follow, the guidance in the asset management strategy. We put notices on site. We put letters through all the residents that were adjacent to the site, and I think that given that we did have the number of responses that we had, the 153 responses, that covered a wide, as you'll see from the report. We tried my best to summarise the 153 responses, but you have obviously got all the comments if you'd like, to read through them. But I think that does demonstrate that obviously there is a strength of feeling, but that we did cover the community by the number of responses that we actually had. Thank you, Chair. I think that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. The The surplus of 1.2 million that you referred to earlier, this would go to funding the 10-year capital programme that was approved earlier this year at full council. The 10-year capital programme is circa £77 million. So there's lots and lots of projects within that capital programme. Repairs to property, facilities management repairs. There's quite a sum for the replacement of the corporate fleets over the 10 years. A lot of work to do with parks and open spaces, improving these areas, playground equipment, improving the actual parks there. And then again, there's a number of projects in there towards the sustainable development as well. So things we're looking at EPC works on commercial the portfolio and sort of making the buildings that we have more energy efficient towards climate change moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you very much to the portfolio holder and our officers for those responses. I've got two councillors who wish to come in. First, Councillor Fear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our officers because they've actually answered some of the points that I wanted to raise. Having said that, more generally, I mean, there are a few things I think we ought to bear in mind. Some time ago now, I put my name to one of these change.org petitions, and I, for the next 6 months, was bombarded with change.org, urging me to sign up to things miles away about which I had no knowledge at all. So I no wish to deny that there is local feeling which is hostile to this, but I think we ought to be careful. COVIDery has produced some unfortunate things, and one of the things about these sorts of organisations is we cannot localise these names. And that, I think, is something we need to bear in mind. It is something that, regardless of other things, is out there. Another thing which intrigued me was nice to see Councillor Kieran say that the previous administration clearly, has, in his opinion, got things wrong. I couldn't agree more. But was this one of them? And the interesting thing here is the way that the previous administration did remove this from various plans. I don't recall, I was on the council at the time, there being a great deal of hullabaloo about that at the time. And that too, I think, is something we need to bear in mind. A further thing that's worth thinking about, of course, is that there is a sort of rather apocalyptic rhetoric going around about the sort of development that could happen on this site, forgetting that the planning process itself requires developers to make sure that there is sufficient provision for local facilities, and indeed can require developers to provide monies to do that. In the same way, the planning process will look hard at highways, volume of traffic, planning of roads and such like. Another thing, of course, which is a thing that I've sort of wear planning officers with, is questions of things like correct design for waste disposal and such like. So there are plenty of safeguards in this. We don't need to think of this as some sort of apocalyptic thing which will bring loads of bad stuff, because the planning process itself has lots of safeguards built in there. It seems to me that if we're going to have extra plots for the deceased, the obvious place to place them is adjacent to the crematorium. In many ways, I think the mental link for many people, that is the right sort of link to make. Clearly, we need that space, and it seems to me that this is the right place to put it.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Councillor Rout, did you want to come in?
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much to the speaker, first of all, because that was a really great argument that you made there, and also to the other residents who've contributed and the petition signees too. I haven't had a chance to check the parameters of change.org, but it's not within, it's possible that can be filtered by postcode or by IP or something like that to ascertain that the people who signed are genuinely borough residents. But I do want to ask specifically why that petition isn't being taken into account or accepted at least, because e-petitions are accepted by lots of other government bodies, including Parliament, as I understand it. And the last thing I just wanted to do was to echo the comments by councillors and our speaker to our public speaker about mental health. I've said it again before and I'll say it again, but for many of us, this last year or 18 months has been the hardest time of our lives. And it's had impacts far and wide to all ages, including children, really serious impacts on mental health. And I really feel as a councillor and as a borough that we should always have mental health at the top of our agenda, and it's our duty here in this room and beyond to our residents to provide good green spaces so that we can all work to improve and make our mental health, get our mental health into a better space than it might be for many at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rout. Would any member who's not already spoken like to contribute at this point? If there's anybody who's not yet spoken. Just to respond then to the point about the petition scheme, I think it is worthwhile. The council should always be keeping its protocols in review. My understanding is, I mean, I've had no part in it until it was passed on to us here. But it was, you're quite right, because it couldn't be verified that those petition signatures came from a local postcode. It wasn't eligible. It didn't meet the threshold for a debate at full council. So it's us considering it rather than the whole council. But that's not to preclude in the future another petition on a similar topic coming forward that did meet the requirements. I believe electronic signatures are allowed. Again, it's worth checking our petition. It's scheduled to the Constitution, that it's contained in our petition protocol, but it does need to be, so we need to be able to say this person signed it and they live at this postcode, and if that is met, then it's possible. So I would recommend anyone who is either a councillor or a member of the public, if you're looking to bring a petition to this council, get in touch with the council and they will give you good advice on how to organise those, and it'd be great to see more petitions coming forward. I don't know if our officers had any further comments that they wanted to make on the issues that were raised by Councillor Fear or Councillor Rout. And did our portfolio holder have anything that he wanted to add?
Is summing up or just in response to those two queries?
I'm looking to members. There are some members who'd like to come in for a second time, so we won't sum up. We'll just go on with the debate then, if there are more contributions that are there to be made. So I saw Councillor Kieran and Councillor Stubbs. I did also see Councillor Fox-Hewitt, but he has spoken already. If it's a very brief comment, I'll let the members of the committee speak first then. So Councillor Kieran first.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a very brief follow-up comment about the issue of the electronic petition. I do actually think it's really unfortunate during a period when residents were not physically able to go door to door with a paper petition, and therefore had, out of necessity, to resort to an electronic petition. I think it's unfortunate that petition has come here. You know, as much as I accept the importance of this committee, I'm sure that residents would have quite liked this petition to have been discussed at a higher level. Well, first of all, I think I would welcome any opportunity to actually make it easier for residents in situations like this to submit electronic petitions that are then treated as valid. But I also think maybe one of the recommendations I'd like to make to Cabinet is that they find some way in which to directly engage with the residents of Bradwell and to listen directly to those concerns. If full council isn't going to have the opportunity to accept and debate a petition for reasons completely beyond the control of residents, I think there should be another equally valid and equally significant opportunity for residents to make their views known directly to the decision makers, in this case, Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Kieran. I agree with much of that. I think that it's within the remit of this committee to feed things like that into Cabinet. And one of the portfolio holders who we principally responsible for scrutinising here is the leader with his hat on of determining things like that. So that comment will be added to the others as we go back to Cabinet with it. It is within the power of members to move motions at full council. I would only say that while I appreciate that this isn't as important a meeting as a full council meeting, the quality of debate you get in a committee is something different. And the reason we have scrutiny committees is because there are some things that if you raise them at full council, you end up with the usual grandstanding from loudmouths like Councillor Holland. And that's not me wanting to be that way. That's the system that sort of channels us into, in those large meetings, that kind of debate, whereas it is possible for a smaller committee to put together more nuanced views. And I hope that's what we're able to do tonight. I hope that's what we are doing tonight. So it's scrutiny of a different kind than you get at a full council debate, but it's no less valuable. And of course, what we discuss here will be fed back to Cabinet. We are not ourselves a decision-making body. Our purpose is to reflect on what's put in front of us and then make comments or recommendations to Cabinet as we see appropriate. And then when they are making decisions, they're doing so informed not just by petitions that come in from the public, not just by the consultation responses that we've had and the reports that their officers prepare for them, but by the views represented by councillors who are here tonight, who represent all parts of the borough. You know, we've got a group leader, 2 deputy group leaders among us, and Mr. Mayor even with us. So I think we are a decent enough group of people to talk about this, and I think, you know, I'm glad it's been referred to us to talk about in line with this report. Councillor Stubbs, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, just picking up on something that the Chair of Planning said, and again, without risking a love-in tonight, I've got a lot of faith in Newcastle's planning committee, and have done for the 9 years that I've served on this council. Where I have less faith is with the planning sort of rules that they operate under. Far too many times, residents of this borough have been asked to put faith in the planning system, and the planning system's operated exactly how it should do, only to be let down at the end. You know, far too many times local residents have been promised X, Y, and Z, and they always build that last. And just when the money runs out and the company goes bankrupt or it's folded or whatever happens, it happens too much. And I know it's beyond the scope of this authority to change that. You know, I wish central government would change it and make it that much harder for companies and sometimes authorities to slither out of what they've promised to deliver. But what I suppose what I'm asking the committee to think about is that it's all well and good, you know, making promises that a lot of these things will be picked up by the planning committee. I've got no doubt that they will be, but what happens after? And I'm unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, far too often those promises and those safeguards, which is probably the better word, that have been put in place for residents just simply aren't delivered on. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other members of the committee who'd like to comment? I'm a soft touch, so I will ask Councillor Fox-Hewitt if he wanted to comment again, but this will be the last time.
Once again, thank you, Chair. I just want to respond to a couple of points. In regards to the 7 areas of green spaces, as I said, they have been repeatedly hawked for developers. They include Bradwell Woods and Land off Clayhanger Close. Over the last 3 decades of all administrations. The only reasons they were never sold is because of them not being appropriate for development, such as the toxicity of the land off Clayhanger Close. So that's hardly somewhere, if it's not fit for building because of the toxic land, it's hardly fit for children to run around in the grass, or as Theresa Ray might say, is in the fields of wheat. The consultation, I appreciate naturally the attempts at defending that, but as I've said, it was conducted during lockdown, yet we are having a critical eye over an electronic petition. It wasn't extended despite requests, and it wasn't adequately advertised. And I think the fact that we've had so many responses is not due to the immediate streets around the proposed site. It was actually the hundreds of leaflets that were shared across the ward by the campaign group. And I'd like to absolutely place on record my thanks for the engagement that they've done. I'd say it's one thing to say, it's what I'm hearing tonight is, it's one thing to say that we'll reinvest monies generated in the ward for the people to enjoy, but I think it's safe to say that my residents will not support the sale of their precious green land to plug financial black holes across the council. It's simply unacceptable. And I'll wrap up by saying the public opinion is clear. It's not ambivalent, it's clear. The response is widespread, do not support the proposals as set out in the council presentations. Thank you for that opportunity, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. From the chair, when I was first elected to this authority, I think the public had lost faith in the many administrations, but it was a Conservative administration at the first point when I was elected, and I was elected. One of the few campaign promises I've ever made is to protect green spaces in my area. And Councillor Fox-Hewitt mentioned Clayhanger, which was one of the 7 sites that was afforded a special status by one of the previous administrations that ran this council. And there was, over a long period of time, a scrutiny task and finish programme, which culminated in a revision of the way in which this authority handles asset management. And part of the reason why we are receiving tonight a report that contains a master plan and a justification and the workings out behind a particular asset which this borough might wish to dispose of in order to advance its aims, is that the outcome of that process took us from a grab bag in which the administration of the day would point in any given financial year and say, oh, we're going to sell this piece of land, we're going to raise some money from it, and we're going to do X with it, to a much more accountable system in which, yes, officers do have to prepare a report. They do have to say, actually, here's what we're going to do with the money. Here is the justification behind what we're doing. And then they have to put that to public consultation, as they have done. And then they have to bring it to scrutiny, as they have done. And the question I would ask is, if what we've got in front of us tonight isn't good enough, what would be good enough? If what you're asking for, if what some members are asking for is a scrutiny process and a consultation process that always results in the outcome that the people who shout the loudest want. And that's not, I'm not resolving that question. I'm saying if this isn't good enough, we need to target our comments back to Cabinet as to where those defects are, and I think councillors have done so ably tonight. So if there are any other councillors who would like to contribute before we move on, all of these comments will be fed back to Cabinet. I can see Councillor Hutton and Councillor Kieran. I think those will be the last 2 before we move on. Well, Councillor Hutton is graciously pointing towards Councillor Kieran. So Councillor Kieran, if you'd like to speak next, please do.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a very quick general observation. We find ourselves again in a situation where we're talking about the sale of council-owned land in order to fund essential works carried out by this council. So if I understand this report correctly, this land has to be sold in order to fund the essential works at the crematorium, but also my question about the addition of the surplus 1.2 million, that is also earmarked for things like the reprovisioning of the waste collection fleet, etc. If I think that's one of the examples. I mean, this begs the question, if this council is involved in a cycle, as are a number of other councils, of selling off assets in order to fund the continued delivery of core services, what are we going to do as a council when we run out of things to sell? And the crematorium needs another upgrade, and we need to buy more bin lorries, and various council-owned facilities need further maintenance work. What are we actually going to do when we run out of things, places, pieces of land to sell? That's not so much a question for Cabinet, but I think it's a question that Cabinet should be raising at a slightly higher pay grade than them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you very much, Chair. I took from the Director of Finance that if that money came into, the 1.2 million came into the council coffers, these are the sorts of things it would be spent on. there weren't actually specifics. But I'd like to come back to what our commercial director said, that this is part of the consultation and the consultation continues. So it's a matter for residents to organise themselves in a properly constituted group and to come and talk to the council. And things that have been raised by Mrs. Clues, such as the facilities that will be there for children to play on, can be talked through so that residents can feel rest assured. And I think that's a very important point that seems to have been skipped over. We are still in consultation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Are there any more comments from members before we go on? Okay, in that case, I'll invite the portfolio holder to respond and to summate. And if he wants to, he can delegate part of that to officers. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Yeah, Councillor Kieran, you make a very fair point. What happens when we run out of land to sell? This is something that has exercised us, obviously, because it's a fairly obvious question to ask. But you remember at the last meeting we had of this committee, we talked about a commercial strategy that was now giving a focus, and we work on that. And we have, in fact, got a commercial director sitting on my left, whose one of his tasks is to provide a commercial strategy which will bring an income in that make this council sustainable in future without selling our assets. Do you want to add anything to that, Simon? Okay, yeah, I'd say he's got plenty to do on that one, but he is a commercial director. It's the commercial is part. But it's a valid point you make, Councillor Kieran. It's something we're well aware of. As Mr. McHenry says, this is just part of the consultation process. This is the next part. I will feed these comments back to Cabinet tomorrow, and I'm sure the clerk is taking minutes. That anything I miss out can be brought forward as well. I get the general gist, I think, is that the problem with engaging with residents, problems with the electronic petition when you can't go door to door getting a normal petition signed because you're not had COVID. It's a fair point, and I'll take that up with them. And I'll report anything else. I've made copious notes on this sheet of paper, and I'll take that back to Cabinet tomorrow. This, of course, isn't the decision-making body that we're sitting in at the moment. Decision-making body is Cabinet. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sweeney. Are there any other officers who would like to comment at this time? I look to the screens as well now. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a couple of comments regarding the commercial strategy and sort of moving forward with the council's financial the funding of the projects, etc. The commercial strategy, as Councillor Sweeney mentioned, we did have some money, some income streams in the MTFS for the commercial strategy for this particular year. Last year. We had to remove those because of COVID, because it was projects that we couldn't really move forward on that sort of particular work areas. So we've had to sort of almost not go back to the drawing board, but obviously working closely with Mr. McKenney and the team about what projects we can work on to actually make allow the council to be financially sustainable moving forward. So we have a number of projects that we're looking into, and I think we've said that we bring these back to you and discuss those before obviously any of those move forward. But that is a key part of our financial strategy moving forward is the commercial strategy. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, in that case, we've done an hour on that item. I think we've done it some justice. There's at least been opportunity for views to be exchanged, and I know all of those will be reported back to Cabinet, which I think, like this committee, will still be broadcast. Is that right? So members of the public will be able to access that meeting electronically, and it will be recorded for posterity as well. So I look forward to viewing that meeting. That concludes then the debate on item number 5. Item number 6 is the work programme. Now, we would normally have a June meeting and September, October, autumn sort of meeting. This meeting that we're at right now has come forward because there was a confluence of a need to scrutinise things. You know, we needed to scrutinise this item before it goes to Cabinet very shortly, and the public petitioners, people who'd responded to that consultation, and our public speaker tonight deserved to be heard before that decision was aired in Cabinet. So it's been, in my view, the right thing to have a meeting today. I would not expect then for us to have another meeting until the autumn. Now, one of the things that I asked when we were setting the agenda for this was, is it possible to see the latest quarterly financial management report? We can't, it's not ready yet. We're not finished with the quarter and the number crunching. So at our next meeting, we'll have two of those, I believe, to look at, which will be Q4 of the last financial year and Q1 of this financial year. So that's unusual, having them both at once. But if members are content to do that, then our next meeting will be in September, and it will have a full agenda of the stuff that we've asked for in the past, like procurement and also the regular items that appear on our agenda. Does anybody have any comments on the work plan? Councillor Fear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. No, that seems sensible to me. In general, I feel best to do a few things well, not a lot of things in a casual way. As regards these quarterly reports, could I put in a plea for a degree of synthesis between them? I think it makes much more sense to look at the two in a holistic way than look at the one, then look at the next one. So if some work could be done on pointing out trends across the two reports rather than just taking them as discrete objects, I think that would be helpful.
I think it's part, I know that the reports themselves are generated to meet a corporate need and therefore will exist anyway. But I'm sure our officers have heard the request that we receive those two quarters together and discuss them together. And perhaps if it is possible for a report covering both to be produced. We've asked the question and our officers will respond. Councillor Stubbs, did you want to raise something?
Yeah, just clarity more than anything, Chair. So, I mean, I absolutely agree that trying to squeeze in an extra meeting in the next 4 months would probably be a waste of resources. But it's also a long time to wait for the end of year accounts to come out, and an additional 4 months. Now, I don't know when normally, and I say normally in inverted commas because there's not a lot normal going on at the moment. But even taking that into account, if we were to go towards sort of September, that feels very late to be publishing Q4 results. Can I therefore request, and it's a request at this stage, nothing formal, that as soon as that data is available, that it's made available, whether or not we meet and scrutinise it straight away, I think those reports, when they are available, should be made available. That's a request that I'd feed back through you, the portfolio holder, back to Cabinet. Thank you, Chair.
That seems very reasonable to me. If when the latest quarterly report is available, officers would be happy to circulate it to the members of this committee. I know that would be appreciated. They'd be able to have a read of it, and if there's anything that shouts out at them as in need of scrutiny, then they can do so on an individual basis. But I'd be very happy for that to happen. As I look at my calendar, because we actually agreed our calendar of meetings at the annual council only a week ago, we were in for a meeting on the 24th of June. That was the date on which we'd planned on having our next meeting. And I'm having a look now, and I can't see that we've got another one due on the calendar until December, which is December the 20th. It's a Christmas meeting. But no, our officer has put in front of me the piece of paper that says, is that the 16th of September? Yeah. 16th of September. So our next meeting then will be on the 16th of September. We will have the reports available to us that we've asked for in the past. In the interim, when that quarterly report is available, it will be circulated by officers to members of this committee. And if something terrible happens, and we live in the end times when terrible things do happen, we will meet before then, of course. But our plan is our next scheduled meeting then will be in December. If there are no further comments on the work plan, that concludes concludes the item on our agenda related to the work plan, which is item number 6. Item number 7 we've dealt with already. Item number 8 is urgent business. Now, I'm not aware of any business that's urgent within the definition of urgent business, unless anyone would like to contradict me. No, there is no urgent business. In that case, the meeting is concluded. Thank you very much for attending. And if you're listening to us, please stop the live stream. Our officers in the background, our IT guy. And please sanitize your desks before you leave. Remember to put a mask on and have a safe trip home. Thank you.